Hey, it's Monday, October 29th, 2018. I'm John Knox. I'm on the lower slopes of Mount Lemmon overlooking the city of Tucson. And there's a little bit of wind and the no-see-ums, the gnats, are out pretty strong, but this is very important, so let's get through it. Now, there must be 100,000 people, hundreds of thousands of people down there in the city of Tucson. I know a few people. I'm sure there are thousands of employers down there in the city of Tucson. I don't know any employers. And right now, that's what Chris Haskell has to do. He has to find one person here that will provide him housing, and he has to find one employer out there that will give him a steady job. Okay, for those of you that don't know much about Chris Haskell, I'll give you the very quick thumbnail update. For about 10 years, Chris Haskell was an avid, active, phenomenally passionate anti-solar geoengineering advocate out there in the city of Tucson. He posted signs all over the city trying to get the citizens to look up, trying to get them to understand that solar geoengineering was happening, stratospheric aerosol injection was happening over their heads. Now eventually Chris became a problem for the city and the state. They fabricated charges against him in court. He had to take a plea bargain in court, and the charge of the plea bargain deal that he took was facilitation of a terrorist activity. So now Chris is in a intense probational program, IPS, and the two things that he has to do are to find a job and also find housing. These are required of people that are in the IPS program. So if you know somebody who may know somebody who has either housing within the city of Tucson or has a job within the city of Tucson, please have those people email Chris. Chris's email is haskellfilms@yahoo.com. That's haskellfilms@yahoo.com. I'll put that down in the show notes in the description box, which is always below the YouTube videos, but I'll also spell it out for you right here. Haskell Films, HASKELLFILMZ @yahoo.com. Now, Chris is a people person. He's really good at telling stories, and he's great when there's a crowd around him. I know that he had his own car stereo installation business in the city of Tucson for a while. I also know that he worked for a car dealership in Tucson, and the volume that he sold was very good, but the customer service, the customer satisfaction quotients that he maintained were stellar. And I think that gives you an idea of what type of employee Chris could be for a new business owner. Now, the housing situation that Chris thought he was going to be having is not working out. He's definitely looking for a new housing situation right now. If you know somebody who may know somebody who's willing to provide housing for Chris, please have them email Chris. Chris is a younger guy. He's a former high school wrestler. He's still pretty strong. He's got a lot of hustle, and I'm sure he would dig ditches or pour coffee if that was necessary. The common sense of the situation to me says, I'm sure down there in the city of Tucson, there are a bunch of employers that could really benefit from having Chris Haskell bring the energy to their job that he brought to designing, making in mass quantities of signs, and then putting them up, nailing them to the utility poles. I believe that an employer who can harness that type of energy is going to have a great employee. Here's the other part of what I want to say right now. Now, this may not be framed beautifully, but this is the idea. All activists now, I believe, are going to be Chris Haskell. I believe more people, more activists are going to get arrested. And if you get arrested, or if you know somebody who gets arrested, here's the thumbnail of what you want to do. Find the best attorney that can cover the situation you're in, raise the money to pay for that attorney, study all of the case law that applies to your particular situation, then stay below the radar. Stay below the authorities' radar until your case comes up in court. Did Chris do that? No, he didn't. Did he make some mistakes along the way? Yes, he did. He's a human being. That's how it turned out for him. But that doesn't change the 10 years of anti-solar geoengineering activity that he engaged in out there in the city of Tucson. All right? So, The other part that I want to cover is this. The YouTube news cycle is relentless. It needs new characters, new situations. Chris was one of those characters for a while. I did videos on him, as did other people. Now I'm going to be moving on out of Tucson very soon because I have other stories that I need to cover. But Chris, because of his anti-geoengineering advocacy, is now stuck for at least a year and a half, if not longer, in a very, very restrictive probational program. So I think the least that we could do is reach out to people that we may know and find out if we know someone who can either provide housing for Chris or can take a job application from Chris knowing that he's in a probational program. Okay, well, I came down here. I cultivated my common sense down here. It's still an ongoing process for me. But as I go forward, I guarantee you I'm going to find more and more and more reasons to stay curious.